Welcome to episode 8 of Sports on the Go. Today we got a big crowd. We got Patrick and Solomon checking in from Kenya. And we got Jamu and Romeo checking in from Malaysia. How are you guys doing?
Doing very well, thanks.
All right, today we're going to be predicting the NBA playoffs. And obviously we have to start with the 8th seed play-in game with the Blazers needing to win one of the two and the Grizzlies needing to win both. We'll start with Patrick. Patrick, just quickly, who do you think is going to take that game?
I think definitely the Blazers are going to take the spot. I think they have too much firepower that the Grizzlies can't handle, especially with their three-point shooting and their paint defense.
All right, next up we got Romeo. Romeo, who's going to take that spot?
I think the Grizzlies are gonna win.
All right, Janu,
I got the Blazers.
Solomon.
Yeah, I got the Blazers, man. Just Dame Dollar is just a little too much for whoever's on Memphis at this point.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with the Blazers as well. I mean, I can see the Grizzlies winning one game, but winning two games, I don't think it's going to happen. All right, that leads us into the 1-8 game in the Western Conference. This is how it's going to work. Whoever chose the Grizzlies, in this case, it was just Romeo. Romeo, you will be doing this round, Lakers versus Grizzlies, and you're going to say in how many games the Lakers or Grizzlies will win the series. So we'll start with that. Romeo, and how many games and who's going to win the series?
I think the Lakers are gonna win. It's gonna be a sweep.
All right, so in 4.
Yeah.
All right, next up, we're going to go over to Patrick. Like he said, the Blazers. So, Patrick, who's winning the series?
I think it's going to be a tough-fought series. I think Dame Dollar is going to put up some great numbers, but I'm going to have to go with the Lakers in 6.
Wow. All right, Lakers in 6. Next up, we got Jinwoo. Jinwoo, who are you taking, the Lakers or the Blazers?
Well, seeing how Dame's been pretty hot lately, I got the Lakers in 5.
All right, Solomon.
Yeah, I look at Dame and I look at that Portland team and I'm just thinking like these guys look determined to win. And so I think I'm gonna go with like an unpopular opinion here, but I'm going Blazers in 7.
Wow.
Just because I think we're crazy on LeBron. And I just haven't seen enough from AD to convince me that LeBron can do it enough. I think that Blazers team is just a lot of offensive firepower that the Lakers can't handle at this point, especially without Avery Bradley, and AD's kind of been up and down. So, I'm counting on Dame.
All right, and I'm going to go with I think it'll be a tighter series, but not tight to the point where the Lakers are really going to struggle. I think it's going to be Lakers in 6. And I'm going to say Lakers in 6 for one reason. The Blazers have good games and they have bad games. Again, they only beat the Nets last night by 1 point. And chemistry has been a little bit of a problem. And if they get rattled and they start losing some games, I don't know how determined you can be against a really good team like the Lakers. So I see them stealing maybe a game or two, but definitely not going to 7 and not winning the series against a really good Lakers team. Next up, we've got the 2 versus the 7 matchup. And that's going to be the Clippers versus the Mavericks. We'll start off with Solomon this time. Solomon, what's your prediction? Who's winning this series?
Yeah, I like Luka and Porzingis, but I think it's Clippers in 4. I think it's a clean sweep.
Wow. All right. Patrick?
I got to go with my Clippers, so I'm taking Clippers in 5.
All right. Romeo?
I think Clippers in 6.
Jinwoo?
So I'm a Mavs fan, and I really hate to say this, but I think the Clippers got the series in 5. But because I'm not as delusional as Romeo, thinking the Grizzlies will win the Blazers.
All right. And I'm going to add on and say I think the Clippers are going to win this series, but I think it's going to be tighter than most people think. And I'm going to go Clippers in 6.
Yep.
All right. That leads us to our next matchup, and surely one of the best matchups that we are going to see in the NBA playoffs. We've got the Oklahoma City Thunder versus the Houston Rockets. We're going to start off with Patrick. Patrick, who's going to win that series? It's the 4 and the 5.
Chris Paul and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander are balling out right now, but I got to go with the 2 MVPs in James Harden and Russell Westbrook. I'm taking them in a hard-fought series, so either 6. I'm going with 6.
So Rockets 6.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be Rockets in 6.
All right, next up, Solomon.
Well, I gotta agree with Patrick on this one. I think James Harden and Westbrook just might be too much for Chris Paul. I think Chris Paul, what he's done with that OKC team is really impressive, and they got him this far. But I think Harden and Westbrook can turn up in this playoffs. I think it's Rockets in 6 as well.
All right, Romeo.
I don't really mind who wins because I like both of these teams, but I gotta go with the Thunder in 6 because of Billy Donovan's strategies. His coaching, great. So yeah.
All right, and Jinwoo.
Uh, I got the Thunder in 7. Just because Westbrook's injured for the first round, and then also the Thunder have been doing good with chemistry, and they've been showing that they are a good contender.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go on here with the Thunder, and I'm gonna say it's gonna be the Thunder in 6. I think with Westbrook being injured, and Harden really proving that he can't do it on his own, like he can put up the greatest stats in the world, they're still not gonna win. I think the Thunder have good chemistry, really good coaching. We all know Billy Donovan's a Coach of the Year candidate. I have to go with the Thunder in 6. Next up, and lastly, in the West, we have the 3 versus the 6. It's gonna be the Nuggets with the rising star of Michael Porter Jr. versus the Utah Jazz. We'll start off with Jinwoo this time. Jinwoo, who's winning this series?
Yep. I think I got the Nuggets in 7. So we've seen what the Nuggets are capable of. They're a third seed team in the West, which has fierce competition,
Yep.
and they got rising talent such as Michael Porter Jr., who kind of exploded in the start of the bubble, and then also got a wild card called Bobo.
Yep.
So I think it'll be a close battle, but I think the Nuggets would be triumphant over the Jazz.
All right, next up, Romeo, who's winning the series?
No, I gotta go with the Jazz in Game 6 because we all know how good Donovan Mitchell is, and they got their defensive center in Gobert.
Yep.
So I don't think the Nuggets are gonna score easily, and I think the Jazz are gonna take it.
All right, next up, we got Solomon here. Solomon, who's gonna win this series?
Yeah, I got to go with the Nuggets in 7. I just think they have a lot of pieces like Michael Porter Jr. and Jokic, of course, Jamal Murray. And what I've seen for the Jazz is kind of, they haven't played stellar, they haven't played great, and I think the Nuggets are going to have a good series against them, even though it's going to be a tight one. So I got to go Nuggets in 7.
Patrick?
I really like both teams. I think they have a lot of young talent, and they got a lot of talent overall in those teams. But I'm liking what I'm seeing with what Quinn Snyder's doing on the Jazz. So I think it's going to be a hard-fought series, but Jazz in 7.
Wow, all right. And I'm going to go with the Nuggets in 6. I think the Nuggets right now are playing really good basketball, getting Jamal Murray back. Gary Harris is coming back. Will Barton. They have Porter Jr., Jokic. I think it's going to be a really deadly team, and I think the Nuggets are going to – the Jazz will steal a couple games, but I think the Nuggets are eventually going to come out on top, and it won't be super, super tight. That's done for the Western Conference. And before we move on to the next round of the Western Conference, we're going to go to the East. First off, I think is the easiest series maybe out of this entire playoff bracket. We've got the Bucks versus the Magic. Let's just quickly go around here. Let's start with Solomon. Solomon, what's the series?
Yeah, I'm calling Bucks in 4. I don't see a way the Magic can get even a game on the Bucks, to be honest with you.
All right, Jinwoo?
Yeah, Bucks in 4, and no more comment after that.
All right, Romeo?
The Bucks in 5.
Patrick?
Bucks in 4.
And I'm going to also go with the Bucks, but I'm trying to think, are the Magic going to steal the game? I'll say the Bucks in –
No.
There's no way.
That's impossible.
Bucks in 5. All right. 2v7. We got the Raptors and the surprising Nets. We'll start off with Patrick. Patrick, who's winning the series?
I'm definitely taking Raptors in 5. I think the Nets can pull away a game. They've been playing really well, especially since they don't have a lot of their pieces at the moment.
Yep.
But I think Karis LeVert can maybe pull off one game. He's really cold, like Bella said. But yeah, I'm taking Raptors in 5.
All right. Next up, Solomon.
Yeah, I think I really like what I've seen from the Nets, this series, but I think the Raptors are just gonna be a little bit too much for them. I like what Kyle Lowry and Siakam are doing over there, so I got Raptors in 6, but I think it's gonna be tighter than people think because that Nets team is really strong, even without KD and Kyrie.
Yep.
There's something to watch. So
Drew.
I got the Raptors in 5, mostly because the Nets, they don't have their best players, and they've also filled half of their roster with some G League two-way players. So I think the Raptors will have an easy time against the Nets.
Romeo.
I think the Raptors are gonna win. They're gonna sweep the Nets.
All right, and I'm gonna go with the Raptors in 6. I honestly, like Solomon said, I'm really liking what I'm seeing from the Nets. Karis LeVert, Jarrett Allen, Joe Harris. They could be deadly. Tyler Johnson coming off the bench. I think they're gonna win 2 games against a Raptors team that isn't. I mean, they have talent, but they're not like last year with Kawhi Leonard. Next up, we got the 3 versus 6, and one of the highly anticipated matchups and rematches of the playoffs. We have the Boston Celtics versus my Philadelphia 76ers. We'll start off with Patrick here. Patrick, who's going to win this series?
I think that's very easy. I'm taking the Celtics in 4. I really don't see the Sixers, especially with all the injuries, overcoming the super talented roster with the Celtics. And I think the Celtics can go a long way. So I don't have the Sixers winning any games. Sorry,
All right,
George.
we're going to have Solomon up next after that berserk comments. Solomon, who's going to win this series?
we got the Bruins, guys. No, I'm just kidding. But I think it's Celtics in 5. My Celtics are beastly out here. So, I think there's just too much for Embiid to do alone. That's just what I feel. I think he's talented enough to get a game on my Celtics, but Celtics in 5.
All right, Romeo.
I gotta go with the Celtics in 6, just because the Sixers have lost their last 3 games, so they're playing terribly recently. So yeah.
Jamu.
I got the 76ers in 4. Nah, I'm just kidding. I got the Celtics. I got the Celtics.
Drew cracking.
I'll mute myself.
Celtics in how many?
In 6. I mean, the 76ers are good, but in the bubble, they've been pretty streaky, and they've lost Ben Simmons, one of their best players. So I don't see how Joel Embiid's going to carry them against Jason Tatum and Kemba Walker.
All right, before I say my pick real quick, I just want to say one thing. The Sixers are 3-1 versus the Celtics this season in the regular season, and Ben Simmons only scoring 8 points in 2 of their wins. So showing that Simmons.
Bro, they still had Simmons, bro. They still had
And let
Simmons.
me just say,
George, don't be delusional.
the Celtics have been struggling too. Okay, the Sixers Embiid did not play in the last couple games. All our starters were benched in one of the games that we lost. So I
Bro,
think you guys are really thinking. I'm taking the 76ers.
Tice is gonna lock up
I'm taking the
Joel
Sixers
Embiid, bro.
This guy really.
Tice is locking up Joel Embiid.
I was
I wouldn't say that.
Closer is getting kicked.
Tice is locking
That's
up,
absurd. All right, and the last matchup for the first round, we have the Miami Heat and the Indiana Pacers, who will be playing tonight to decide which seed they will be sitting in, the 4 or the 5, but the matchup is confirmed. We'll start off with Solomon. Solomon, who's winning the series?
Yeah, I like both teams. I like what I was saying from TJ Warren, but, as early in the season when Jimmy Butler said they weren't in the same league, I think he's right. And I think the Heat are going to take this matchup in 7, but it's going to be a convincing 7th game, I think.
All right, Jawu?
I got the Heat in 6. I think the Pacers have been pretty good, and TJ Warren has shown what he's made of. But I think TJ Warren, what he's going through now, this might be a hot take, but I think it's more of like an insanity thing that will end in a while, rather than like a long-term growth.
All right, Romeo?
I got the Pacers winning in 6.
Patrick?
I think it's going to be a close series, and I think the Pacers are a really talented roster, but I'm taking the Heat in 6.
All right, and I'm going to hop on with the Heat, but I'm going to say the Heat in 6 also. I think the Pacers will take a couple of games. They're playing really good basketball and they're really well coached, but the Heat are just more talented than they are right now. All right, that's it for the first round. So now we'll be moving on to the Western Conference second round or semifinals. We're going to start off with the winner of the Lakers Blazers versus the winner of the Thunder versus Rockets. We'll start off with Patrick. Patrick, you chose the Lakers and you chose the Rockets to win in 6. So out of the Lakers and the Rockets, who's going to win the series?
I think it's going to be a really interesting series, but I got the Lakers in 5.
All right. All right. And out of everyone else, only one other person chose the Rockets to win, and that was Solomon, and he chose the Blazers to upset the Lakers. So, Solomon, who are you taking out of the Blazers and the Rockets?
Yeah, I like what Dame is doing, but I think his glory run is going to end with the Lakers defeat. So I got the Rockets in 6 going to the Western Conference Finals.
I have to stop you there for a second. You think the Blazers are going to upset the number 1 seed in the West, but when they come to the trash small ball lineup of the Rockets, they're going to lose.
I just think I think people are sleeping on the Rockets like heavily, man. I know the small ball is unorthodox and it's not traditional, and in some cases it's been iffy. But I just think with this new style of NBA basketball, it's all about spacing. It's all about getting to the bucket, and those most important things. I think James Harden and Russell Westbrook are just going to take over.
All right, and how many games for the Rockets?
Yeah, I got Rockets in 6 though. It's a decent series.
Solo, I think you need to take a second to recalibrate, but it's all right. Next up, we got Jinwoo Moon. Jinwoo, you said the Lakers were going to win in 5, and you also said that the Thunder were going to win in 7. So, Lakers Thunder, who's winning the series?
Yeah, I think this is a bit obvious, but I'll take the Lakers. I think the Thunder have been good, but they have a bad matchup against the Lakers.
So, Lakers, how many games?
In 5.
All right, and next up, we have Romeo. Romeo chose the Lakers to win in 4, and he also chose the Thunder to win in 6. So, Romeo, who's winning the series?
I gotta go with the Thunder in 7.
So, upsetting the Lakers.
Yeah.
There might be a little bit of bias there, but I'll let it go. Next up, I had the Lakers winning in 6, and I had the Thunder winning in 6. And quite frankly, I don't think this series will be super difficult for the Lakers, but I think Chris Paul will make some noise. I'm going to say Lakers in 6. All right, moving on to the next matchup in the West. On the other side, we have the winner of the Clippers versus the Mavericks against the winner of the Nuggets Jazz. So again, we'll start off with Solomon. Solomon, you had the Clippers in 4, and you also had the Nuggets in 7. So with that being said, who's winning the series? Is it going to be the 2nd seed Clippers or the 3rd seed Nuggets?
Yeah, I think this one is kind of a nightmare matchup for the Nuggets. I don't see anyone on that Nuggets roster who's a wing that can guard Kawhi and Paul George consistently, And I just think the Nuggets are going to have a hard time against that Clippers team, so I got Clippers in 5.
Clippers in 5. All right. Moving on to someone else who also had a similar matchup in mind. We have Patrick, who took the Clippers in 5, and he also took the Jazz in 7. So, Patrick, who's winning that series?
I really liked I really like the Jazz, and I really like what they're doing, and I think they have a bright future ahead of them. But there's too much playoff experience in the Clippers, and also being a Clippers fan, I'm taking the Clippers in 4.
Sweeping. All right. Going back to the Clippers and Nuggets matchup, we have Romeo, who took the Clippers in 6, and he also took the Jazz in 6. So who's winning that matchup?
No, I think it's fairly obvious. I think the Clippers are gonna win in 4.
Clips in 4 also, going along with Patrick. Next up, we got Jinwoo. Jinwoo took the Clippers in 5, and he took the Nuggets in 7. Who's winning the series, Jinwoo?
Yeah, I think this is a pretty obvious one, like Romeo stated. I got the Clippers in 5 as well.
All right. I think this series is going to be much closer than people think. The Clippers have been playing inconsistent basketball. We all know playoff Kawhi is something different. And PG, when he's playing well, is a top maybe 6-7 player in the league when he's shooting the lights out. So I'm going to I'll take the Clippers, but I'm going to take the Clippers against the Nuggets in – man, this is tough. I don't know if I want to put them in 6 or in 7. I'll take the Clips in 7. I think the Nuggets are well coached. They have a ton of talent. And they kept it close with their recent matchup with the Clippers until the very end. So if they can fix a couple issues they had, I think the Nuggets will give them a run for their money. But again, I think the Clippers are just more ready for a playoff run this season.
Bro, the Clippers in the playoffs are godly, bro. Dude, look what happened last year, bro, against the Warriors, dude. Look what happened, bro. And now they got 2 stars, bro, to pair.
All right.
Don't forget Marcus Morris, too.
Exactly, bro.
All right, next up, moving to the Eastern Conference. We're going to go with the Milwaukee Bucks and then the winner of the winner of the 4-5, which was the Heat or the Pacers. So we'll start off with Solomon. Everyone took the Bucks in this round, so Bucks are automatically going to be in every matchup for us. But Solomon chose the Heat to win in 7. So, Solomon, who's winning the series, the Bucks or the Heat?
Yeah, during the season they had a lot of good matchups, and it was really interesting to watch them play against each other. But I think come playoff time, I think Giannis is on a mission, and I think that this is going to be a less close series than people might think. I think it's going to be Bucks in 5.
Bucks in 5. Wow. All right, Patrick, you also took the Heat, and you also took the Bucks. So who's winning that series?
It's good because we've seen Bam Adebayo lock up Giannis, but at the same time, Bam Adebayo has little to no playoff experience, and I really don't see anyone on that team locking up Giannis the entire series. And remember, they also have Chris Middleton, who, when he gets hot, he's like a Klay Thompson-esque shooter, 50, 40, 90 at the moment. So I'm definitely taking the Bucks in, I want to say 7.
All right. Next up, we got Jumu.
This may be a hot take, but I got the Heat in 7. So,
Wow.
so the Bucks last year, we've seen they've choked in the playoffs, and I think that may happen again with the Heat. The Heat, who was it? Patrick said
Bam Adebayo.
Yeah, Bam Adebayo could lock up Giannis potentially, and I think the Heat has so much talent, such as Jimmy Butler, who have good experience in the playoffs. So I think this will be a Heat in 7 game. It's Heat in 7 series.
Sorry about that. One of our reporters had some technical difficulties in the form of tutoring. So we will continue. I'm going to take the Heat also in 7. The Miami Heat have a ton of experience at coaching. Eric Spoelstra has led the team to multiple NBA finals and has won a championship. Budenholzer has not. And the Heat can have a great defensive team and a ton of shooters. And the Bucks, they have Giannis. But as soon as you lock down Giannis, they don't get so much deeper. They have Bledsoe and Middleton, and then they start shooting threes, and that's pretty much it with Lopez and Korver. So I'm gonna take the Heat in 7. It'll be a really close series, but I think the Bucks are gonna lose in the second round. Moving on to Romeo here. Romeo, you had the Pacers beating the Heat in 6. So Bucks Pacers, who's winning the series?
This could be fairly controversial, but I have the feeling that the Pacers are gonna win in 6. But I'll tell you why. I have a feeling Malcolm Brogdon is on a mission. He wants that revenge, and he's just gonna pop off, bro. TJ Warren as well, bro. Those two, they're just gonna start shooting the lights on and just pop off.
All right, I can respect that. All right. Next up, and the other side of the Eastern Conference, we have the winners of the Raptors Nets, and the Celtics 76ers. So I think everyone chose the Raptors to beat the Nets. Yep, and then everyone chose the Celtics except the one real person here who chose the 76ers. So we're going to start off here with all the Celtic clowns. We'll start off with Raptors Celtics. Solomon, who's winning the series?
You know, as I said before, the Sixers matchup, I think my Celtics just got 4 guys who can drop 20 on any night, you know, on any given night. Even all 4 of them could drop 20. And I think that's so valuable in the playoffs. And I think, you know, I really like the Raptors, but I think their championship run from last year really heavily relied on Kawhi. And I think without that one shot against the Sixers last year, they're not going to win the finals. So, you know, I got the Celtics in 7. It's going to be a hard-fought series. But I think, you know, Tatum and the crew can overcome Siakam and Lowry and co.
Tell me, Solomon, did the Raptors have a better or a worse record without Kawhi this year?
Oh, they probably had a better record, but, you know, that's not everything. I think come playoff time, when it comes down to it, I think they're going to miss Kawhi the most. That's when they used him the most last year. That's when they needed him the most, and he delivered. And I think they don't have that this year. You know, Lowry is great. Siakam is great. I love those guys over there in Toronto, but I just think when it comes down to it, you know, I don't know if they'd be able to pull out the series against the Celtics.
All right, let's go on to Patrick. Patrick, who's winning the series? Celtics, Raptors.
You know, I really love the Celtics. I think they're going to do some great things in the future. And they got great talent right now. They had 2 All-Stars in Kemba Walker and Jason Tatum. But at the same time, the Raptors do have, I think, stronger playoff experience compared to the Celtics. And I think the rising star in Pascal Siakam is really going to show up in the playoffs. And he's gonna show a lot of people what they didn't expect. So I'm taking Raptors in 7.
Raptors in 7?
Yeah.
Romeo?
I agree with Patrick as well. I have a feeling that the Raptors are playing better than last year, even without Kawhi. So I have a feeling that they're gonna overcome the Celtics.
All right, and then let's move over to the only realistic second-round matchup here, the Sixers versus Raptors. It's gonna come down to this. The Sixers are 3-1 versus Celtics this year, so I'm fairly confident they're gonna win that series. Then they come to the Raptors, who beat them on the luckiest shot of NBA history, okay? And they don't even have that player anymore. The Sixers are more talented than the Raptors, and I think this year they have less experience, but they're more talented. I'm taking the Sixers in 6.
Oh, no, don't do it to yourself. Don't do it.
What?
Don't do it.
What?
I'm kidding. It's going to be Sixers in 7, but because of missing that one shot, the Sixers are going to take the series this year. Moving on to the Western Conference Finals. Only 2 matchups to go. Everybody, this gets a little messy here because a lot of people chose the Lakers to exit the playoffs earlier than the Western Conference Finals. Now, I got to figure this out real quick. You guys confuse me. Patrick, you had the Lakers win in the semifinals against the Rockets, and you also had the Clippers beat the Jazz. So we have the Lakers, Clippers for you. Who's winning it?
That's easy. Come on. I'm taking the Clippers in 5. I think that Kawhi is going to show up again. I think he's going to win his 3rd Finals MVP. And I think that he's a different breed. I know LeBron's a different breed, but he's also aging. But I'm definitely taking the Clippers in 5.
All right, next up, we're going to go to Solomon. Solomon had the Rockets beat the Blazers and go to the Western Conference Finals. And then he had the Clippers beat the Nuggets. So he has a Rockets-Clippers, a very unusual Western Conference Finals here. Who's going to win it?
You know, like I said last time, I really like what Westbrook and Harden are doing over there in Houston. And as much as I want to pick them to win the series, and as much as I really want them to be in the finals, I just think when it comes down to it, the Kawhi has something that different that, you know, a lot of guys today don't have, especially Westbrook and Harden. I don't think have what Kawhi has, which is just the ability to make one shot, rely on him to make a shot in the clutch. I just think it's going to be a really tight series, and I think the Clippers are going to be able to pull away just barely going to pull away over the Rockets. So I got Clippers in 7, but I really believe in the Rockets that their small ball lineup will cause some trouble for many teams. But I just think Paul George and Kawhi would be just a little too much for them to overcome. So I got Clippers in 7 going to the finals.
All right, before we move on to Romeo real quick, I just want to say something to Patrick. The Lakers Clippers just played their first, not just played, they played their first game in the bubble 2 weeks ago. And Anthony Davis, just a question, no argument. Anthony Davis dropped how many points?
What was it, 29? No, it was like 32.
42. He dropped
42.
42. And I just want to say, because we need to move on here, I don't know how Anthony Davis doesn't drop 42 again, because I don't think what's his name?
Bro, you're right. He's gonna drop 8.
Anthony
That's what
Davis,
he's gonna
but
do.
we'll move on.
He's
Romeo,
gonna be dropping 8.
Romeo, you had the Thunder upsetting the Lakers, and you had the Clippers beating the Jazz in a sweep. So you have a Thunder Clippers Western Conference Finals. Who's going to the finals out of the Thunder and the Clippers?
Listen. I know that they're gonna win. All right. Even though the Clippers have Kawhi and he's like apparently he's a different breed, bro. We got Steven Adams. He's literally Poseidon. He's a god. He's gonna be locking everyone up. No one's gonna be scoring, bro. No one. So, and then we got Chris Paul. He's just got experience, and Paul George. Paul George sometimes he chokes, and I have a feeling in that matchup he's gonna be choking. He's gonna be dropping 8.
How many games for the Thunder?
So I have a feeling the Thunder are gonna win in 6.
Oh.
Let me just say something.
Oh, my goodness.
Thunder Clippers is a more realistic matchup than Clippers Rockets.
I would beg to differ, George, in a nice way. Just because I look at the Thunder, right, and what they've done is impressive. Like, it's really impressive. Like they lost to Westbrook, they got back Chris Paul, and they've gotten this far, which is impressive. But I don't think they have enough to overcome the Rockets. First of all, I don't think they have enough to overcome the Clippers. I definitely don't think they have enough to overcome the Clippers. I just think Kawhi and PG, and I don't know who's going to guard them over in OKC. I don't know who's going to be able to get a stop on them. It's a blank mind for me. So
Well, I just want to say something. Even if Kawhi and PG are somehow locked up by someone on the Thunder's roster, who's gonna lock up Trez and who's gonna lock up Lou Will? Like, those guys are offensive threats as well. Those guys, they can't just be overlooked because of the third and fourth option. They're really good.
We got Robertson.
Oh my God.
He's back in the lineup.
All right, guys, we gotta move on here. I have a Lakers Clippers Western Conference Finals, and Clippers winning in 5 is not even realistic. Okay, so I'm gonna go with the Lakers going to the NBA Finals, and they're gonna win in 7. Even though I want to see them win in 6, they're gonna win in 7, and it's gonna be a great game. And LeBron and Davis are gonna come out on top because let's be honest, LeBron is the greatest of all time, and Davis they have no one to guard Davis. They have no one to guard Davis, and LeBron locked down Kawhi and PG in the final minutes of the game. They had no shot to get off. LeBron switched on both of them, arguably 2 of the best scorers in the NBA, and locked them down. So I'm taking the Lakers in 7. We're gonna go over to the Eastern Conference now. So we have the Thunder coming out on top in the West for Romeo. We have the Clippers for Patrick. We have the Clippers for Solomon, and I have the Lakers. So moving on to the East, Romeo had the Raptors winning in 7 against the Celtics, and he also had the Pacers winning against the Bucks in 6. As you can see, I'm shocked that I had to say those words, but we have a Pacers-Raptors conference finals. Romeo, who is winning this series?
It's a tough one.
What?
I gotta go with the Raptors though in 6.
All right, we're gonna move on before anything else is said. Patrick, you had the Bucks winning in 7 against the Heat, and you also had the Celtics in the semifinals somehow, but you also had the Raptors beating them in 7. So tell me, it's going to be a Bucks-Raptors conference finals, a rematch of last year. Who's taking it home?
I think it's going to be a great series. I think if Giannis steps up, it's going to be a different story. But just from seeing what we saw last year, I think I'm going to have to take the Raptors in 7.
Wow. So the Bucks missing out for the second straight year for the Kawhi-less Raptors. All right. Moving on to Solomon. Solomon, you had the Bucks in 5 versus the Heat, and you also had the Celtics in 7 versus the Raptors. I think it's pretty clear who's gonna get a sweep here, but let's see. Solomon, who do you have winning the series?
As I've said the last 2 times with my Celtics, they got 4 guys who can drop 20 on any given night.
Would you name
And
the 4, please?
And I think when it comes in the playoff, that's going to be extremely valuable.
Solomon, who are those 4?
You got Kemba Walker, Jaylen Brown, Gordon Hayward, and Jason Tatum. Any given night, all 4 of those guys can drop 20, any of them. And I think the Bucks have, as people have said, they've had a history of choking in the playoffs, and they've played against the Celtics a few times in the playoffs the last few years. Even though Giannis wasn't as good, I know that, but they've had a history of just not coming up all the way, And I think they got Giannis, they got Middleton, but I don't know if I can trust Bledsoe and Lopez, coming out and
how many games?
for a good series against the Celtics. So, as much as it seems like I'm just a homer and I'm picking my hometown team, I just think the Celtics are too talented not to get to the finals. So I got Celtics in a hard-fought 7, though.
All right, so I have a question for you real quick. What's 4 times 20?
80.
Okay. And does 80 points win you a basketball game?
No, but we got so many of the ballers on the bench. We got Tice, we got Marcus Smart, we got so many of the ballers on that bench that could really come up big for us.
All right, so just going back real quick. Tice versus who again in the Sixer series?
Yeah, Tice is a baller of a defender. I think he's got Embiid in his pocket, man. I have faith in Tice that he's going to lock him up.
All right, before anything else outrageous is said, we're going to move on. I have you see, look how outrageous that was. I can't even think properly. All right, I had the Sixers winning in 7 versus the Raptors, and I also had the Heat in 7. So I have a Sixers Heat Eastern Conference Finals. And look, by the time this happens, Ben Simmons should be able to return from injury, making this a much more interesting series. Now look, Solomon picked his hometown team, and I honestly believe this is the year. Maybe not having Ben Simmons works out as an advantage for us. Maybe it does. We don't know. Simmons is a great player and very talented, but maybe not having him on the floor gets us to play different ways and gets different players on the court more often. So I'm going to take the Philadelphia 76ers.
Wait. Let me stop you right there for a second. Bro, they lost their last 3 games, bro. Their last
and Romeo, can you see who played in those last 2 games? Embiid missed one of those games. He played 13 minutes in one of those games, and then he missed another game. And he's playing tonight, and he's not playing tonight. So
I just think the Sixers, they got too many problems. They got.
Bro, I'm calling it already, bro. Embiid is getting injured. All right.
Look, I'm taking the Sixers in 7 again versus the Heat. After winning that 7-game series against the Raptors, they're going to win another 7-game series versus the Heat. And now let's look at our final matchups. We have Romeo with a shocking Thunder versus Raptors NBA Finals. Romeo, who is going to win the finals that nobody could ever predict? The Oklahoma City Thunder versus the Toronto Raptors.
I'm gonna go with the Raptors in 6.
All right.
Who's Finals MVP? Finals MVP.
Although I want the Thunder to win, they're just not gonna be able to.
And then along with that, let's go with what Patrick said. Romeo, who's getting Finals MVP?
I think Van Vliet is gonna be winning the Finals MVP. Last year he should have won it. But Kawhi somehow won it. So I think this year is gonna be his year, and he's gonna be winning it.
All right, let's everyone take a second here and think about what Romeo just said. Okay, let's continue. Next up, we have Patrick. Patrick, you had the Raptors beating the Bucks again, and you had the Clippers. So a Raptors-Clippers NBA Finals. Still not very realistic, but we'll see what happens. Clippers versus Raptors. Who's winning the series?
All right, I think it's going to be a really interesting. I think there's going to be a bit of revenge that the Raptors want to do, but I still don't see them overcoming the Clippers. So I'm taking the Clippers in either. It's kind of hard between 6 or 5, but I think I'm going to be generous, and I think Clippers in 6. And Kawhi Leonard at Finals MVP.
All right, Clippers in 6 and Kawhi MVP. All right, so next up, we're going to go to Solomon. He has the Clippers barely beating the Rockets versus his hometown trash, the Boston Celtics. Solomon, I know whenever I say the hometown trash, I'm just playing. You know I respect you, but Celtics are kind of garbage, not going to lie. We have the Celtics versus the Clippers in the NBA Finals. Who's winning it?
You know, as much as I would love to say my Celtics are going to win the series, you know, I love me some good Celtics ball, but I think I just got to be realistic, and I got to face facts. You know, I think, as I said before, the Celtics have 4 guys who can drop 20, but the Clippers have what, like 3 guys who can drop 30, and then 5 guys off the bench that can drop double digits. You know, they're incredibly deep. Kawhi, Paul George, even Lou Will can go off on any given night. And I think my Celtics are just a little bit too young and a little bit too inexperienced to, you know, go over the top and beat the Clippers. So I got Clippers in 6, but it might be 5 as well. So Clippers in 6, yeah. And then finals, I got Kawhi. I just think he's such a baller in the playoffs. And I think he's just gonna you know, be the first player in NBA history to win Finals MVP in 3 different cities, you know, 3 different places, which is incredibly impressive. I think Kawhi is just a whole nother monster.
All right, and now to the most realistic NBA Finals matchup, the Philadelphia 76ers versus the Los Angeles Lakers. I am going to go against my hometown boys, and I think they're a little bit they're not experienced enough to win NBA Finals yet, but making it against the GOATs will give them that experience for next season to take the chip home. But this year, it'll be the Lakers against the Sixers in 6, and Finals MVP will go to the one and only Contavious Caldwell-Pope. And I'm playing. LeBron James, the GOAT. But yeah, so to sum things up, we have Patrick, Clippers versus Raptors, Clippers in 6, Kawhi, Finals MVP. We have Solomon, Clippers versus Celtics, Finals MVP, Kawhi Leonard, Clippers in 6. We might as well just skip past Romeo's. Romeo's is absurd. We have mine, Philadelphia Sixers versus Los Angeles Lakers, Lakers in 6, LeBron MVP. And then we have the Oklahoma City Thunder versus the Toronto Raptors, Raptors in 6, and Finals MVP, Fred VanVleet. Thank you all for tuning in to this episode of Sports on the Go. Although it was a long episode, I think we all had a good time here. And I hope we can make your day with this episode, and we'll see you next time.